Okay, let's just get right into it. Who is the greatest musical artist of all time? I mean, seriously, it's the question, right? The one that's launched a million arguments, filled up countless message boards, and probably, ended a few friendships along the way. It feels like this impossible question, but we just can't stop trying to answer it.
And you ask that question, and right away you're going to get people with some very strong opinions. For some folks, it's not even a debate. It's all about cultural impact. It's about a band that didn't just write songs. They completely reshaped the world around them. For them, the answer is, and always will be, the Beatles. End of story.
But then, just when you think it's settled, someone else jumps in, from a totally different generation, with a completely different point of view. They'll argue it's all about sonic innovation, about an artist who basically defined the sound of the 21st century. All of a sudden, that settled debate is wide open again.
And just to throw another wrench in the works, right? Someone else chimes in, and their argument isn't about impact or innovation at all. Nope, it's about pure, undeniable talent. Sheer vocal power. The kind of voice that literally just stops you in your tracks. So, who's right? I mean, all of these are totally passionate and totally valid points. But here's the thing, they're all measuring greatness with completely different rulers. So how in the world do we even start to figure this out? Well, let's try to break it down. All right, let's try to cut through the noise. What if we start with what seems like the most objective thing we have? Let's talk about the data. Can we actually settle this thing with cold, hard numbers? Okay, so if you just look at the raw data, the story seems pretty clear, right? I mean, you've got the Beatles way out in front with a mind-boggling 600 million records sold worldwide. And right behind them, you've got legends like Michael Jackson and Elvis Presley, both sitting on 500 million. Seems pretty straightforward. Case closed? Well, not so fast. See, the problem is that numbers don't always tell the whole story, because the music industry itself has changed so much. Back in the day, FM radio gave rise to what they called album-oriented rock. And that meant bands weren't just trying to crank out hit singles. No, they were crafting entire albums, these big artistic statements. So comparing chart performance across different eras, it's really like comparing apples and oranges. Okay, so if sales numbers are a bit of a minefield, what's next on the list? Maybe true greatness isn't about what you sell, but about the echo you leave behind. Let's talk influence. There's some artists who don't just participate in the conversation. They fundamentally change the language of music itself. Their ideas, their sounds, they become the new foundation that whole future generations build on, whether they even know it or not. I mean, just look at Michael Jackson. His influence is absolutely staggering. And it's not just that he influenced other pop stars. No. You can draw a straight line from MJ to the sounds of modern hip-hop, the choreography of K-pop, the vocals of R&B, even the experiments of psychedelic rock. Now that is a legacy. And then there are cases where an artist doesn't just influence a genre. They basically invent it. For heavy metal, every single road leads back to Black Sabbath. They laid down the sound, the themes, the whole vibe. Their influence isn't just a ripple. It's the big bang that started the whole wave. All right, so sales are tricky. Influence is kind of hard to nail down. So where do we go from here? What about the experts? The professional music critics. Can they give us the definitive answer?
Well, the second you put a professional review next to a comment from a fan, you see they're living in two totally different worlds. The critic's using this really academic language, talking about opulent introspection. Meanwhile, the fan is just feeling it, talking about a mind-blowing voice. They're listening to the same music, but they're valuing completely different things.
And you know what? This whole problem isn't just about music. You see this exact same debate happening in other fields, like journalism. Is an expert supposed to be this perfectly neutral, objective judge? Or are they always, in some way, an advocate for a certain kind of art or a certain point of view? The whole idea of a truly unbiased expert, it gets complicated really fast.
So maybe the whole point of a critic isn't to crown a winner. Maybe their job is just to give us a new way to look at something, to offer some context, maybe teach us something we didn't know before. And in the end, its value is totally up to us. It all depends on whether we're open to learning. Okay, so if sales, influence, and the critics all have their issues, what's left? What if we look at the music itself? Like, is there some kind of scientific formula for a perfect, great song?
So on one hand, you can get super academic about it. You can analyze a song's structure, its contrapuntally conceived harmony, all these complex ways melodies weave together. It's the language of classical music, a really technical way to understand why music works. But then you get this. One of the most iconic sounds in the history of pop music wasn't cooked up in a lab or a music theory class. It was Michael Jackson singing into a 5-foot cardboard tube. Seriously, it's a great reminder that genius isn't always calculated. Sometimes it's just about messing around to see what happens.
And that right there perfectly shows you the two sides of the coin. You've got the intuitive genius, like Prince, who was largely self-taught and just felt it. And then you have the musicologist, who studies it their entire life in an academic setting. Both paths can lead to a really deep understanding of music, but neither one holds the only key to greatness.
So, after digging into sales, influence, critics, and even music theory, it kind of feels like we're no closer to an answer, right? And maybe that's because we've been asking the wrong question this whole time.
Let's just take a huge step back for a second. There's this one simple, really beautiful truth that researchers have found. Every single culture on Earth sings. Music isn't just entertainment, it is a fundamental part of being human. It's this universal language we all share.
So, look at the road we've traveled here. We started with sales numbers, then we explored that echo of influence. We even questioned the critics and looked for some magic formula in the science of it all. And each time, we got a different little piece of the puzzle.
And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe this whole GOAT debate isn't a competition that someone's supposed to win. The very fact that we argue about it so passionately, well, that just proves how deeply music matters to us. It's the soundtrack to our lives. It connects us to each other, and it says so much about who we are. So in the end, the real question isn't who is the GOAT. The real question is who is your GOAT? Because the artist that you pick, the one that speaks to you more than any other, well, that says something really important about your story, your values, and your place in the world. And honestly, that's way more interesting than any sales chart, isn't it?